जारंकयने अरे राजी है हम उसी में क्या तो वानी जा प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We'll chant from verse number 21. Verse number 21 to the end of the chapter 28. अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः तमाहुः परमां गतिं यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम। पुरुषः स परः पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि येन सर्वमिदं ततम्। यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ। अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणं तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः। धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनं तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते। शुक्लकृष्णे गतीयेते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः। नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन। वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत्पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टं अन्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्. Okay. Hari Om, everyone.
Hello.
Hari Om, sir. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Welcome back to a new week. We'll start with questions. Okay, again my laptop is playing funny. I'll put out questions on WhatsApp. Rashmi ji is here. Okay.
I'm yours.
Questions from chapter 8, verse number 18. Inherent nature and innate quality of an individual known as vasanas are extremely subtle. From this line, to consider a musician going to sleep. Okay, from this line to consider a musician going to sleep. Okay.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om. The inherent nature quality of an individual is, I'm going to put it slightly smaller. Okay. Yeah. So this paragraph you want. Okay. So what is the difference between manifestation of vasanas in the microcosm and macrocosm? How does the deep sleeper in macrocosm differ from a self-realized one? So microcosm and macrocosm are simply two terms used to explain sort of the world of an individual and the collective world, right? They're not two separate worlds as such. It's simply saying that your individual experience and the collective experience are related to as the microcosm. Microcosm is your experience as an individual. Macrocosm is the collective sort of world beyond perhaps the periphery of your senses, right? Beyond the periphery of your senses. So, how does what is the question? The question was,
So before that, there's another question. The vasanas, the innate material, and the seed, are they the same?
yes, the vasanas and the innate material. I mean, we are just trying to find new words to convey this to you. What is vasana? So, seed is perhaps the best metaphor for vasana, right? We use innate because it is you, sort of the deepest part of your individuality. That's why you use the term innate. And the fact that it is not visible, or it may not be, it may not be manifested yet, it may not be apparent yet, it may not have actually emerged into a expression yet. That's why we use the analogy of the seed. So vasana is your inherent nature, your seed, your in some contexts also we use vasana is avidya. Vasana is actually ignorance. Because you have fallen into ignorance, you have, you have vasana as such. So in different contexts we use different analogies, but yes, inherent nature and seed are the same. The other question was, what is the difference between manifestation of vasanas in the microcosm and macrocosm? So manifestation of individual vasanas is the microcosm, manifestation of collective vasanas is the macrocosm, right? How does the deep sleeper in macrocosm differ from a self-realized one?
No, sir, the difference, that's the reason I know what is microcosm and macrocosm. What I wanted was, how does the seed, when it develops in a collective and a individual, how does that differ? It helps to understand the vasanas more.
Correct. So look, that's a good question. What essentially is the difference between the microcosm and the macrocosm? And the reason we see, in the beginning we assume that okay, there is a much bigger, broader, wider world beyond our own sort of microcosm. But the more we get to think of it, the world, or the world as we perceive it, is largely painted or largely sort of the perception of the world is largely interpreted by our own vasana, our own capacity to interpret. Two people looking at the same thing will interpret it very differently based on their nature. So in that sense, the macrocosm also is perhaps an extension or a reflection of your very microcosm, right? But he uses the term micro and macrocosm only to not necessarily to sort of draw the connection between the two, only to show that we think of the world as individual and this big grand thing. Well, all of it is vasana. This is also vasana, that is also a vasana, right? A separate line of thought is, yes, the world is a reflection of your mind. Means the world is not any different or disconnected from sort of a projection of your own mind. That's a totally different sort of line of thinking and a totally different concept, which perhaps springs from here but is not being discussed in this particular verse, right? Okay. How do the deep sleeper and the macrocosm differ from a self-realized one? The deep sleeper, now look again, the deep sleeper of the macrocosm is only a term given to sort of consciousness, the collective consciousness, right? The collective consciousness is given a term called the deep sleeper. In the collective consciousness is a term given to the macrocosm, and that also goes through three states: waking, dream, deep sleep, as it were. The sum total of all deep sleepers is the macrocosmic deep sleeper, if you can conceive that. So how is it different from a self-realized one? A self-realized person is one who has transcended waking, dream, deep sleep. A self-realized one who is awake and yet in that state of poise, reality. So the state of anandam, the state of complete peace and bliss you experience in deep sleep, combined with the awareness of waking, right, is an enlightened person. An enlightened person is one who because they have woken up, they are in anandam, and yet they are aware, so they are sort of waking, as it were, right? Okay. The day of Lord Brahma, known as Kalpa, denotes the period of creation. His night, known as Pralaya, denotes the period of dissolution. Yes, during Pralaya, the vasanas take the form of a seed. Yes, that's the meaning of Pralaya. That the collective vasanas, so your individual Pralaya is your death, is a Pralaya. Why? Because you dissolve into a unmanifest form, and your next incarnation is a kalpa for the individual. Similarly, in a cosmic sense, there is also a kalpa and a pralaya, right? So a kalpa is where there is a manifestation, a pralaya is where there is a dissolution. Yes, there is no creation at that point. It's all dissolution, right? So during a pralaya is a period where there's no manifestation, right? So creation is simply manifestation of vasanas, and pralaya is simply dormancy of vasanas, right? Are they actually a state of mind which creates the illusion and dissolution of creation? Is it a state of mind which creates the illusion and dissolution of creation? Well, look, on the one hand is this sort of concept of kalpa and pralaya, which, as I said in the previous class, you can choose to take it literally, but the purpose of these concepts is only to highlight upon you first of all, the fascinating nature of sort of creation. Well, how it actually throws more questions than answers, number one. Number two, to give you an appreciation for the scales of time which make your small life look insignificant. right? Um, is there actually a Brahmaji sitting somewhere? Is there actually a creation happening 4.32 billion years? I don't know how they got those numbers. I'm not answering all those questions for you. And very frankly, those questions are not the purview of Vedanta, in a sense. See, this knowledge is called a Shruti, right? It has been revealed. You become worthy of revelation, it will be revealed to you. So, I can only guess what was in the mind of the sages who were perhaps, conveying this to us in this form, in these verses, in these through these ideas, right? And what purpose does this message serve? So, at least as far as sort of Vedantic exploration is concerned, more than a literal sort of interpretation, it is sort of the inspiration it gives us to to remain on this path of contemplation, remain on this path of mystery. Yeah. It's fascinating. If you keep the idea of a kalpa and pralay in your mind at all times, you'll be much less disturbed as a person. You'll be much less troubled by someone parking in your spot. Huh? You took my parking space. See, so although that's not the that's not the sole purpose of these concepts. Okay, but that said, what is sadhana? What is the spiritual journey? Yes, this world, this manifested world, is an experience of the waker experiencing the waking world. No sooner the waker wakes up, this waking world disappears. Right? Similarly, the dreamer experiencing the dream world is what we call the dream. No sooner the dreamer wakes up, the dream disappears. Just like that, when the waker wakes up, the waking world disappears. So, this idea of constant creation, dissolution, on the one hand, is meant to create a sense of detachment in you, but on the other hand, is also to inspire you to finally wake up to what is this waking and sleeping? What is this creation and dissolution? I want to get to the bottom of it. Getting to the bottom of it is called moksha. Right?
Sir, so the Avyakta is Apara Prakriti, right?
The avyakta is apara prakriti. Yes, vasana is all part of apara prakriti. Para prakriti is Brahman, Atman. Right? Apara prakriti is all from vasana all the way to sharira. All avidya is in apara prakriti. Okay, Kiranji, are you here? Okay, I see Kiran. Okay. If the sole
Yes, hi,
objective of
Savanya.
human, Hi. If the sole objective of human life is to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death, why is human life repeatedly created through the cycles of yugas, creation, cosmic dissolution? Why does anything exist at all? Why not just pure, silent, absolute stillness, always and forever? Who said there isn't pure stillness, silence? See, imagine yourself watching a movie in a nice ambient room, all the lights are switched off, nobody's talking, nobody's murmuring, buzzing. Uh, Everyone's taking care to make them absolutely quiet and watching intently a movie on the screen. From that vantage point, you are the witness watching the projection on the screen. When you're watching a movie on the screen, you are a witness in perfect stillness, silence, simply observing, simply watching. Imagine you entering the screen And imagine you started imagining yourself to be the protagonist, or one of the characters on the screen, going through the undulations of the drama, going through the ups and downs of the script, identifying as a character and all the relations and all the experiences. So from the vantage point of the observer, you are in complete silence. And all of this is just a leela, a drama. Is the movie actually real for the observer? No, the movie is just a wonderful story projected on the screen. The movie is not reality for the observer. But for the one who imagines themselves inside the screen, they are in the constant wave of sort of undulating experiences. They're going through cycles of sort of pain and pleasure. So when we talk about Brahman and when we talk about reality, it is that state of the observer watching a screen, watching a movie. It's a different realm of experience. You'll appreciate that there is the realm of the movie world is different from the realm of the observer world. Does that make sense? Is my analogy making sense to you so far?
Yes, it does.
So, stillness for whom? Pure observation for whom? So long as you're inside the movie, so long as you're inside the screen, you're going through these undulations. And these undulations are real for you. These cycles, these yogas, these creations and these dissolutions are real for you. So long as your imagination lasts. So this is a truly revolutionary idea in our Indic thought. What is this moksha? What is this liberation? It is actually coming out of the screen. As a child, one of my most nowadays I don't watch that much horror and stuff, but back when I was a child, I used to watch this show. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. It used to be called Aahat. Anyone heard of that show? Aahat. Does it give goosebumps? Now, I don't remember half of the rubbish that was there in that show, but one episode I distinctly remember, and it is so so Vedantic in that sense. In that episode, a person enters a room and there's a painting on the wall or a picture on the wall, a picture of some ocean, seaside. A family enters the room and there's a picture of some, seaside sort of vista, beach and stuff like that. And I don't remember the finer details, but long and short of it is some of the family members in the middle of the night, they're sitting alone in that room while others have gone to sleep. And some ghost stuff happens, some creepy stuff happens. And these people who are sitting in that hall enter the painting or the picture. So they've exited this world, this house, and they've entered the picture. And the other person who went to sleep wakes up in the morning, is unable to find them. And the whole tension, the whole drama is when they finally realize that some of them are inside the picture and some of them are here. See, this is not horror in the true sense, right? This is not horror in the, it's not like a dangerous looking, devilish looking evil person. This is a psychological horror. Some of you are stuck inside the screen and some of us are here in what we call reality. That's exactly what it is. This world that you and I are currently in is like that picture. It's a totally different realm. And we believe this is real. And so long as this is real, we are going through yugas and cycles of creation and dissolution. When you wake up from a dream, you realize it didn't happen. It wasn't there. That's a creepy thought. That's a creepy thought. So when you wake up from the dream, the only thing worth remembering about a dream is how real it felt while you were in the dream and how easily you realize that it didn't happen at all right now, now that you've woken up. So while you are in this waking phenomenon, yes, the yugas are real, and the eons of time are real, and there is creation and there's dissolution, and this table in front of you is real, and the person in your life is real, and your family is real. It's also real. But when you wake up, you'll realize there was all stillness. It was all still. It is still. So stillness for whom? Quietness for whom? Wake up and you'll find out. It's pure, silent, absolute stillness. It is always and forever. This cosmic cycle of yugas, it's all in imagination. It sounds daunting. It is daunting. That's the only clarification we can give. But this is the revolutionary idea of God, and this is the revolutionary idea of enlightenment that Vedanta has to share with you. If it sparks your curiosity and then your inspiration, then you will walk the path towards this awakening. Does that make sense, Kiranji?
Yes, it does. Point taken.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Verse number 21. So last class I forgot to take 21. Well, no worries. We're here to take 21 and 22. We'll chant it again and take it up. Avyaktoksara ityuktaha tamahuh paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tadhama paramam mama purushassa parah partha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantasthani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. So the unmanifested. In verse number 20 he said that beyond this manifest world and the unmanifest vasana, beyond this creation and dissolution, beyond this kalpa and pralaya, there exists yet another higher. And that higher is also unmanifest, means it's not visible, easy, comprehensible, accessible by the senses. It's also unmanifest. So it's a higher unmanifest. You can think of it as a para unmanifest, right? Yet another unmanifested, eternal, which is not destroyed when all beings are destroyed. So it is beyond the cycles of pralaya and kalpa. There is beyond everything, all things which are going through kalpa and pralaya, another unmanifested being, bhavaha, another unmanifested being, which is eternal, which is not changing, which is not affected by this constant pralaya and kalpa and pralaya. And now he says in verse number 21, that unmanifested, which we're talking about, that higher unmanifested. So there is, as far as the matter is concerned, as far as prakriti is concerned, there is vasana, which is unmanifest, and sharira, which is manifest, right? But beyond prakriti there is a higher unmanifest. He's not giving it a name. Well, I'll let the cat out of the bag. That is purusha. So beyond prakriti there is purusha. This higher unmanifested is called the imperishable, avyakta, akshara. This unmanifested is called the akshara. It is said to be the ultimate goal. Reaching this akshara is said to be the ultimate goal. You and I are lost in this cosmic dance of kalpa and pralaya. We are simply oscillating between our unmanifest vasana and our manifest sharira. And we've lost complete touch. We've lost cognizance of this akshara, this highest unmanifest, what we call Brahman, which is within each of us as Atman. That is the ultimate goal. Paramam gatim. That is the Param Gati. That is the reason you've taken this human form. The bhajan we were listening to this morning, he says, Nar sharir anmol re prani prabhu kripa se paya hai. नर शरीर अनमोल रे प्राणी प्रभु कृपा से पाया है. अनमोल क्यों है? कभी पूछो ना, ये नर शरीर अनमोल क्यों है? दुनिया भर घूमने के लिए, खाना खाने के लिए, हॉलिडे पे जाने के लिए. What is the reason that this human birth is invaluable, anmol? It's because of what we as humans are able to pursue, conceive and pursue. Sadhana is only possible in this human form. That's why even the devas are jealous of the human body. Even the devas are jealous of the human form, because sadhana is possible only in the human form. The purpose, the reason that the human form is invaluable, the reason that human birth is invaluable, is because we've been gifted with a buddhi to try and conceive what is the purpose of all of this, what's the point of all of this, to step out of this constant creation and dissolution, this constant chain of birth and death, this constant procreation and sustenance, to step out of it, or at least try to step out of it. So the Ishavasya Upanishad in this vein says that if you don't try to even step out of it, well, the Ishavasya Upanishad is not so kind. It's very brutal. It says, if you fail to step out of it, you've wasted your life. If you don't realize the truth, if you don't wake up from this cycle of chain of birth and death, if you don't attain enlightenment, moksha, it's the greatest of greatest losses. It's a bitter truth that the Ishavasya Upanishad shoots like a dart. Imagine how a dart pierces. It's meant to pierce us. You wasted your life if you've not even tried. Forget trying if you've not attained it. 21st century teachers are kinder than the Ishavasya Upanishad. They say, even if you don't achieve it, at least try. At least try. So, Nar Sharir is Anmol because you have the capacity to conceive, what on earth am I doing? Quite literally. What's my purpose out here? So that is the Paramam Gatim. It's said to be the ultimate goal, the unmanifest. Those who reach it do not return. So everything else we've been talking about, coming and going so far, the different states of heaven and hell, one way to think of it is these are all states of mind. As you elevate to higher states of mind, as you perform tapas, as you live a righteous life, as you do good deeds, you elevate your state of mind. But they're all subject to return. Why? Because no matter how much you grow, the moment you turn complacent, you can devolve. Similarly, you may commit papa, sin, and fall into deeper stages of hell. But with knowledge is that raft which will lift everyone from this torrential Bhavasagar. So these different realms, you can think of the realms of Pralay or the realms of Svarga. There are several Svargas, there are several Pralays. These are all different states of mind which, based on our karma, we rise to or we fall to. But these are all subject to return. We can grow from there and we can fall from there. Right? But one who crosses these lokas, one who attains moksha, they are not subject to return. They who reach it, reach what? The unmanifest, the avyakt, the akshara, they are not subject to return. He says, that is my supreme abode. That is where I stay. Oh Krishna, oh Arjuna, you want to come to me? That is Vaikuntha. That is where I am. In the Ananta Shayana. So, a little bit of jnanam and a little bit of bhakti to convey this message, right? He's adding the, if this world doesn't make sense to you, at least you'll come here because I am here. Listening to it, oh, I don't want to go to the unmanifest. I don't think this is the ultimate goal. Arey, don't worry, I am there. You come here. He says, that is my supreme abode. This unmanifested, this akshara is where I reside. So you want to reach me, you have to cross this sharira, you have to cross these realms, these lokas, and attain moksha. And and in that vein, he said in verse number 22, what did he say? O Partha, that supreme being in whom all beings dwell, by whom all this is pervading. It may all sound very difficult to attain, and it may all sound very esoteric and mystical, and something that you haven't or you don't think you can attain. However, it is indeed attainable by unswerving devotion. So we covered this in the last class. Bhaktya ananyaya, by unswerving devotion, by constancy of thought, by dedicated pursuit, with shraddha, with dhriti, you can attain it. And that's the purpose of sadhana. The purpose of sadhana is to change your frequency, to change the frequency of your thought. You start by praying 5 times a day until your entire day becomes a prayer. Why do we pray before we eat? So that eventually we can pray all the time. That's the only correct answer. Huh? Your child will not understand that. But why do you pray before you eat? Not to thank God for the food we eat, to stay in a constant state of thankfulness to God, of gratitude to God. We pray before we eat because that's one time we can actually stop ourselves and remember, or try to stop ourselves and remember, until it becomes a constant thought. Bhaktya anyaya. Verse number 23. Yatra kale tvana vrittim avrittim chaiva yoginaha prayatayanti tam kalam vakshyami bharatarshava. I will tell you indeed, O Bharatarshava, the time in which yogis departing never return, and also the time they do return. So naturally you may be thinking, what is this whole mystical concept that he's talking about? So Lord Krishna says, let me add some more masala to it. I'll tell you a little more about this path of return and no return. I've talked to you about returning from all the worlds up to Brahmaloka are subject to return. So I'll tell you a little more about returning, and I'll tell you about no return. When you attain moksha, then there is no return. I'll tell you a little more about it. In fact, this thought will continue now and then go on till the next chapter, till about verse number 10, 12 in the next chapter, it will go on. So he's going to talk about this idea and thoughts around it for some time now. But before that, yes, Rituji, you have a question.
Just a simple thing, sir. You said that devas are also jealous of the human form. So I just wanted to ask that why is it that so? Because are they not entitled to do sadhana, and or can they not also do sadhana like the humans? Is what I was wondering.
See, this is a very common concept in the Puranas. You'll hear all the stories about the devas and the asuras, and they'll be always mentioned. They'll mention time and again that, oh, the Manushya Yoni is the most gifted. So look, I don't know why the sages put that in there, and it's more of a bhakta concept, right? It's not meant to necessarily be analytically understood, but rather invoke a feeling in you, that feeling of gratitude. Oh my God, I'm born as a human. Even the gods are jealous of me. And if you ask me if I have to add an analytical reason to it, see, who is a daiva? A daiva is an elevated state of mind, right? And in an elevated state of mind, you tend to get complacent. When things are good, when there's happiness all around, when there is a state of bliss, then you think life is to enjoy. So it's not a rule, but complacency creeps in. Similarly, when you are in a asuric state, when you are in an agitated state, you have no time for higher thinking. You're too caught up in figuring out or resolving your agitations. But Manushya is that sweet spot in the middle. Sena yor ubhayor madhye. Right? It's between bliss and agitation. It's that objectivity, that middle path of detachment, where neither do I identify with the bliss of the daiva, neither do I identify with the suffering of an asura. So perhaps that's why the idea is that if you're in a state of mind of a manushya, you can truly be objective. Otherwise, you're subject to complacency or agitation. That's one way to perhaps think about it. Okay, so
Thank you. Thank you.
I will tell you, O Bharatarshabha, the time in which yogis departing, they never return. So there is that path of moksha by which they never return, and also through many efforts we attain higher realms, higher lokas, higher states of mind, purer states of mind, but we are subject to return. So let me tell you a little more about it. Verse number 24. Agnirjyotirah shuklaha षण्मासा उत्तरायणं तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्म विदो जनाः अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणं तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्म विदो जनाः. Fire, light, daytime, the bright fortnight, the 6 months of the northern path of the sun. There departing, the knowers of Brahman go to Brahman. Reading this verse is precisely why everyone wants to make sure they pass away in Uttarayan and not in Dakshinayan, and they consider Uttarayan the auspicious time. Very sad, yeah. 6 months of the year is not auspicious then. Before you delve into this, let me make one thing very clear. A time is not auspicious. An action is auspicious. An auspicious time is a transferred epithet. What is the transferred epithet? See, in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, they said the divine chariot of Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Divine chariot matlab? The chariot was not special. It's not that it had some AI capabilities or something. The chariot was a chariot. It became divine because Arjuna and Krishna were in it. Specifically, Lord Krishna was in it. So divinity doesn't belong to the chariot. It's a transferred epithet. It's a transferred quality because of Krishna. Similarly, a time is not auspicious per se. It's a transferred quality of the action or the intention you pour into that moment. So any time is a good time in that true sense, right? So fire, light, daytime, the bright fortnight, the 6 months of the northern path. There departing, the knowers of Brahman go to Brahman. All these things, fire, light, daytime, bright fortnight, 6 months of the northern path, they signify light, they signify knowledge. When you have knowledge, when you have the ultimate knowledge, when you are able to attain beyond scriptural information, when you are able to embody knowledge, that's when you go to Brahman. Attaining Brahman is an experience. You have to realize it, right? And it's all symbolized by light. So fire is light, light is light, daytime is light. The bright fortnight, referring to the 14 days of the moon, where the moon is, I don't know if it's waxing or waning, I always forget the term. Basically, when the moon is becoming bigger. Shukla Paksha. Shukla as opposed to Krishna. I think now we are in Krishna Paksha right now because the moon is becoming smaller every day, if I'm not wrong. After Amavasya, we'll be in Shukla Paksha. So, see, to you and me, these terms, to very few of us, they make sense because we're so used to only following a solar calendar, specifically the Gregorian calendar. But if you look at our entire tradition, it's always been a lunar solar calendar. So Shukla Paksha was a very common term, or is a very common term to those who know how to, sort of follow the path of the moon. So the bright fortnight refers to the fortnight where the moon is becoming bigger and bigger. means there is more light. When the moon is big, you don't even need street lights. You can walk around in the moonlight. You can dance in the moonlight. And the 6 months of the northern path. The northern path of the sun is where the sun is closer to, the earth is tilted towards the sun, or at least this part of the earth, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. So in that sense, we are closer to the sun, right? There departing the nose of Brahman, go to Brahman. Again, like most of these concepts, not meant to be taken literally. What is the transferred epithet out here? That the epithet is of light, awakening, as opposed to darkness, as opposed to confusion, as opposed to lack of clarity. And that is what he'll talk about in the next verse. Verse number 25. धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनं तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते. धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनं तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते. Smoke, night time, the dark fortnight, the 6 months of the southern path of the sun. There obtaining the lunar light, the yogis return. So the verse number 24 is called the path of the sun, the solar light, the solar path, and this is called the lunar path. Again, nothing against the moon, it's only symbolic. Okay, don't start hating on the moon. He has to give it a name. He's calling it the lunar path. So this is the lunar path, symbolized by darkness, or symbolized by return. And one may think, why is it lunar? Why? Because the moon is also, in a sense, constantly oscillating between light and darkness, isn't it? It's becoming brighter, 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 then it is waning into darkness. So it's not a permanent state. Whereas the sun, it's self-effulgent and permanent light. So it's a permanent realization. So these are all symbolisms as to why these terms were chosen. Nothing per se wrong with the sun and the moon. In fact, the moon doesn't even have its own light. Now we know, right? And the moon is not a self-effulgent object. So smoke as opposed to fire. Fire is what gives light. Smoke is what covers the light. Night time, the absence of light. The dark fortnight, Krishna Paksha, the 14 days of the waning moon, when the moon becomes smaller and smaller all the way to Amavasya. And the 6 months of the southern path, when light is less and less prevalent. See, again, you can take it literally, but the symbolism out here is, in the southern path, if you're in Calcutta, 4 o'clock it's dark. Depressing. I hate to stay in Calcutta during winter. 4:30 and it's dark. Like, what do you do with your life then? And especially if you're further north up. If I still remember, I went to London in December. Never go to London in December. Okay, you can go. It's beautiful weather. It's nice and chilly and all of that. But 4 o'clock it's dark. And 8 o'clock in the morning it's sunrise. So barely any sun you get. 8-9 hours. The idea is that the southern path of the sun signifies a period of prolonged darkness, or more darkness than light. That's all it says, right? So where darkness overcomes light, then there is a return. When you evolve and you become complacent, then you allow for darkness to enter into your life, and you are subject to return. So all the worlds, all the elevated states of mind until moksha, until liberation, are subject to return. The Upanishad very subtly suggests this. They say that if you are in ignorance, you are in darkness. But if you are attached to knowledge, you are in deeper darkness. If you allow complacency and attachment to creep in, particularly when you're evolved or when you've grown to a certain extent, when you're in an elevated state of mind, the fall is worse. You enter a deeper darkness which is hard to come out of. So it's a message, it's a warning for any spiritual aspirant that don't stop, don't become complacent until you attain moksha. Don't develop that ego. I am evolved. I am grown. I know. I understand. I am better than them. My guru is better than them. My knowledge is better than them. My practices are better than theirs. These are all ways in which ego creeps in, even into your sadhana. So you've attained a certain elevated state of mind because of some sadhana, whatever sadhana you're doing, karma, bhakti, jnana, mantra, tantra, whatever you do, yajna. But ego has a, ego can creep in, and complacency can creep in any level, and you fall. They're subject to return. So yogis are subject to return when they allow darkness to creep into their sadhana, when they allow ego to creep into their sadhana. You can take it literally, or you can take this symbolism, whichever is more helpful to you. We're not here to prove anyone right or wrong, right? But interestingly, in the next verse, the Lord uses a term. He uses a term which makes it more, well, which perhaps add weight to what I'm saying, that it's meant to be taken symbolically rather than literally, right? Verse number 26. Shukla Krishne gati hete jagata shashvate mate ekaya yatyana vrittim anyanya vartate punaha. Shukla Krishne gati hete jagata shashvate mate ekaya yatyana vrittim anyaya vartate punaha. These bright and dark paths of the sun and the moon, they are verily deemed eternal, everlasting. They've been going on forever and they'll continue forever. This path of growth and evolution and devolution of an individual has been happening from time immemorial. By one path, a man goes not to return, and by the other, he returns again. Right? So the path of the sun is where you attain moksha, you wake up, you realize, and there's no return. And by the other, you evolve, but you may return. Or you devolve and you may return. It's a path of return. These bright and dark paths are deemed eternal. The word used out here are mataha, mate. They are thought. These are perspectives. These are matahas. When he uses the term mata means opinion, perspective, as opposed to something that is factual. And when something is a perspective, when something is something that is an opinion or a conception, one ought to think about what is the purview of that concept. What is it referring to? Is it meant to be taken literally or symbolically? Right? So the word mata only lends weightage to sort of considering these concepts as concepts and not to take them literally. Right? So it is thought, it is believed, it is considered for some reason, for some perspective, to shed some symbolism, that these bright and dark paths, all beings are subject to this path of return, and once they break free from the path of return and they walk on the path of the sun, they attain moksha and they do not return. So which path do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the path of the moon? Do you want to simply enjoy an elevated state of mind only to come back? Or do you want to attain the ultimate moksha? It's inviting you to think about what you want for yourself. And more than anything, it's a reminder for a yogi, for a sadhak, that I will not stop until I attain moksha. I will not be happy with any of the pleasures that even sadhana brings me. Right? When the great Nachiketa went to Lord Yama and said, I want Brahma Vidya. He said, I want Brahma Vidya. Yama was impressed. He said, such a young child, Brahma Vidya. Wow, what a great thing. I'm impressed by you. I'll give you everything you want. I'll give you wealth, I'll give you pleasure, I'll give you position, I'll give you anything you want. I'll give you all those cows, all those women. That's what Yama said to Nachiketa. Nachiketa said, no, thank you. You can keep it. Meaning what? If you take up the spiritual path, a lot of pleasures will come to you. People will respect you. People will have regard for you. People double your age will call you Utsav Ji. For what? Huh? If you get complacent, see, all of these things give you a certain pleasure. But if you get caught up in it, if that becomes the motive of your sadhana, if you get confused or if you get carried away in it, you are going to be subject to return. Or will you be a Nachiketa? Will you say, no, thank you? Okay, you may give it to me, but this is not what I want. This is not what I need. This is not what I'm here for. In fact, if you're truly a Nachiketa, you'll say, I don't want any of this, not even right now. You'll follow a path called Kaivalya Mukti. And that's what only the rarest of rare seekers are capable of. I've talked about the path of return. I've talked about the path of the sun. The path of the sun is called Krama Mukti. It's called liberation in stages. The spiritual path is a gradual path. Slowly we grow, step by step. But one who has an urgency, they follow the path of Kaivalya Mukti. They say, nothing else. I want it here, right now. That's the path of Nachiketa. That's the path of Ramana Maharishi. No, I will not get up until I attain enlightenment. Ultimate Zidd. Who is capable of that? Kaivalya Mukti. So forget Kaivalya Mukti. At least if you pursue Krama Mukti and don't limit yourself to a path of return, you've done a good job. Right? That's what he's trying to inspire you for. Verse number 27. We'll complete 2 verses before we conclude class today. We'll take these 2 verses together. Naite sriti partha janan yogi muhyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna vedeshu yagneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanamupaiti chadyam. Knowing these 2 paths, the path of the sun and the path of the moon, O Partha, no yogi is deluded. When a yogi keeps this very clearly in their head, that there is a path of return. No matter how much I grow, if I become complacent, I will return. And I must follow the path of the sun. I must keep my thought, my intention very clear. Moksha, mukti as my goal. That will protect them from delusion. It will give them clarity. Then everything that the world has to offer them, all the undulating experiences, all the pleasures also of sadhana, they will not get deluded by it. Therefore, O Arjuna, be steadfast in yoga at all times. All of these concepts are simply to inspire you to become a full-time yogi. From a part-time sadhak to a full-time yogi. From once a week studying Bhagavad Gita to daily studying Bhagavad Gita. That's the purpose. I'm telling you all of this. Be steadfast in yoga at all times. Yoga is not something you do once a week or in the morning. It is a constant awareness of your spiritual purpose through every thought, word, and deed. And then he says, verse number 28, he says, whatever meritorious fruit is assigned to Vedas, sacrifices, austerities, and also gifts, the yogi rises above all of these, having known this, and goes to the supreme primeval abode. So, when you follow the teachings of the Vedas, when you perform yajna, and we know yajna is not just doing havan in a havan kund, it is a attitude in action. So when you perform yajna, when you do tapaha, austerity. And also when you do dhanam, when you have a charitable disposition, when you do karma yoga, a lot of meritorious fruits will be assigned to you. A lot of pleasures will come your way. You will be in an ethereal state of being. The world will not disturb you so easily. Now it's very easy to turn egoistic about that. It's very easy to turn deluded about that. It's very easy to think, yes, I've got it, I've done it, I'm greater than others. He says the yogi rises above all of this, and this is what protects him from delusion. The yogi rises above all of these, realizing that if he gives in to the pleasures even of the spiritual path, he is subject to the path of the moon, he is subject to return. But if he rises above all of them, he will attain the path of the sun, that path which takes him to the supreme moksha, enlightenment. So first of all, take up yoga, and having taken up yoga, be consistent, constant, dedicated to it, and also realize that the path of yoga does not end until you attain moksha. Right? So be a constant yogi, nitya yogi. With that thought, we'll conclude today, and we'll chant the concluding mantra of this chapter, which is the tradition. And then the first verse of this chapter, signifying that we'll come back to study this, because clearly this chapter has gone over all our heads. So much of symbolism and so much of new concepts, and now he's speaking really in mystical terms. Till chapter 6 it was all good. Now chapter 7 and chapter 8 is all so confusing. But we'll come back to it, and that's why we'll chant the first verse again. Okay. Om Tat Sad Iti Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Akshara Brahma Yogo Nama Ashtamo Dhyayaha. And the first verse we'll chant together. Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adhibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adhidaivam Kim Uchyate. Okay. One more chapter. Done. Chapter 9 will continue. It's not going to be he'll keep talking about this path of return and non-return, because he knows that now Arjuna's ears are up. It's something he's curious about. So he'll continue talking about this, and that's how we'll start in the next chapter. But are there any questions? We can take up any questions.
Please may I ask?
And I have one.
Please may I ask?
Who's asking? Chetna ji.
Uttarji, I love the fact that you say that these are all concepts and not like the universal truth because the rishis have said it or Krishna has said it. I love that. And also, I want to say that the concept that of Brahma years and Pralaya and Srijan makes us feel small and insignificant. That's the concept given by them. So why is the concept given that I am that makes us feel all important? When you say I am that, who is the I? So when you start saying I am that too early, before shedding the false I, that's the complete wrong message. Right? So first you have to shed what is not you. First you have to realize that everything you consider yourself is insignificant. Because your belief of who you are is false. Not only is it insignificant, it's false. What you have assumed yourself to be is not the real you. So that's the path of negation. You're negating what you are not. Right now you're giving this false idea of you all important, to a point where it's driving you crazy. Mera kya hoga?
All your thoughts directly or indirectly are surrounding, are linked to मेरा क्या होगा. But मैं कौन हूँ? जो आपने अपने आप को समझ के रखा है वो, first of all, it is insignificant. That's the idea. We try to dilute it. It's insignificant. And ultimately we say it's actually false. It's not you. It's an imagination. It's not you. So that's the path of negation. Having negated, you assert what is really you. That I, that unchanging I. That I that is within you, but you're not able to pinpoint what it actually is. Everything about you is constantly changing, but that I is unchanging. It's with you ever since you were born. It will stay with you till your last moment. In fact, it will continue on. That I is what you carry through lifetimes. That I is the real you. But what is that I? He says, I am that. I am the Atman. I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am not the intellect. So the idea is not to rush into claiming I am self, all important with the false I. First, you have to shed the false I, negate it, then assert the real I, the real you, beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the intellect. Right? Anji, Rituji.
Yes, if I may add to just what Chetna ji asked, and for my own understanding, or for us as students to understand, can I also add that this question should also be sort of, complemented by the question of what actually is I. I mean, if we know what actually is I, then that problem perhaps won't occur. Also, that if I am that, then he's that, she's that, everyone is that. These two things, if we remember, I think it sort of helps us understand. Just wanted to share when the discussion happened. That's the thought that came to my mind.
Yeah.
And yes, also one question I want to ask. I mean, first and foremost, thank you so much. Today's class was, it was like how much can you grab? And there was so much that one could understand and trying to understand, of course. But why so much of symbolism everywhere if all this is symbolism? That is my question.
Why
Why
so
was
much
Sri
symbolism?
Krishna? No, like you said, this thing about light and darkness, the sun phase, the moon phase, why is these months better? In all our practices, let's say religious practices and other things, there are these appropriate time and days to do things. Everyone advocates. Now, if it is only symbolic, then why so much of you and cry about it? I mean, I'm just
Ask those who give you and cry to it. No, but that said, see, Rituji, the first step to turning a you have to have that sort of, you know, highest common factor. What is the common factor which will connect everyone in an entire culture? Because people of different psychological capabilities, different spiritual interests, different awareness are sort of being brought into the same sort of, collective culture, right? So we have to have one collective practice which will sort of include everyone, right? So the first way in which you even seed the thought of divinity is to um, distinguish it from what is not divine, right? So naturally you have to create a thought of what is evil and what is divine, right? So, and that is how the majority of people actually relate to God. God is that which is fighting evil, right? All our rituals, all our practices, all our festivals are about light defeating darkness, because that's the primary way in which we even relate to or initially relate to the concept of divinity, right?
Definitely.
So maybe that's why there has been, I mean, and always it has been not limited to theoretical concepts, but actually integrated into sort of our lives in terms of, sort of our daily calendar and our annual calendar. You know, certain times have been considered divine as opposed to others. Certain days have been considered divine as opposed to others. Uh, I don't want to take away from the fact that, look, there is some. Uh, I don't want to take away from the importance of how say a certain time of the year may be better than the other time of the year, or a certain day may be better than the other day. Right? Say, for example, morning is better than night to study, isn't it? But what is more important, morning or study? People start giving the time more important than the action. That's all we're trying to say. The action is what is more important than the time. There, yes, you may. I'm not saying don't find an auspicious day or an auspicious time, and there is some. It's a Vedanga, right? The idea of astrology and the idea of right time and this and that. So absolutely, you should try to adhere to it as much as possible, or give it the right value. But when people put all emphasis on time and not on the karma, that's when so people look for the right time to do the wrong action, right? Whereas the emphasis should be on action. So in a way, you know, the reason for framing it in this way is only to highlight that, sort of shift the importance, right? Shift the priority. Okay. Thereafter, if you feel connected to sort of a certain way of, say, for example, me on a personal level, I'm not rebellious about it. I adhere to it. You know, there's I may not understand it, but if there is a system in place and if it is fairly reasonable and something that doesn't sort of cause too much of inconvenience, it's okay. Let's adhere to it, right? But is it all important? Rather, here is the no doubt your environment will influence you or the time will influence you, but can you also influence the time? Can you have a positive influence on your environment? That's another way of thinking about it. So, relative importance. What are you giving importance to? Is the question. Yes, Prisha.
So,
Yeah.
can I just add something here? So, is it fair to understand, like you mentioned, the example of morning overnight? I mean, morning is definitely a much better time to study for most of us because we are fresher, let's say. The logic is, we've had a night's rest, like one of the logic could be, and we are more charged up and, fresh in our mind with, alertness and
Yeah,
everything.
likewise, they say that
So,
on a certain light of the moon has a certain
exactly,
effect on you, and the
exactly,
water is rising and this and
exactly.
that. Now, that's why, okay, certain days of are good for certain. In fact, if you read Jyotisha, in Jyotisha, there is specific days are good for specific kind of activities.
So it's not all symbolism then.
See, again, now it's about the importance how much importance do you give it? And I'm not saying don't give it importance, I'm not saying give it all importance.
I get it. I get it. Yes.
Um, um, but the the action and the purity of your action should be what is given primary importance. Thereafter, these become secondary. That's all we're trying to see.
Yeah. Very nice. Thank you so much.
Yes, Prisha.
Yeah, I mean, I think my question's a bit more general, but I just wanted to ask, like today you were talking about the path of the sun, right? So it's basically, I feel like there are days where you get like a little too egoistic about, or like you feel like more superior about the things you've achieved, but then in that same day, then there are times where you constantly like feel inferior also, especially I feel like given the environment that I I'm in right now. It's very easy to get like overstimulated. So I feel like, is there a more practical like sort of thing, or like something that you can come back to, something you can live by, so at the end of the day you want in like constant emotional turmoil, I think.
Yeah. So, both an inferiority complex and a superiority complex are an expression of your ego. You feeling superior about something is your ego talking. You feeling inferior about something is your ego talking. When you feel superior, you place yourself on a pedestal higher than what you actually are. And when you feel inferior, you are actually diminishing yourself or exaggerating the insignificance of yourself, right? Not recognizing sort of the part you are playing. Ultimately, as you grow to recognize that you are a part of the whole, as you develop that spirit of karma yoga, as they say, then you will be less and less tormented by these emotional fluctuations, right? And the only way to become established in karma yoga is to develop your buddhi. You've been given a mind, which is the vessel of emotions. Your mind is what constantly feels emotions, good or bad, pleasurable or unpleasurable, positive or negative. But you've also been given a buddhi, which is the tool with which you observe, you think, you reason, you understand, you comprehend, and you sort of question, you reason, you give relative importance to. So the more you develop your buddhi, to that extent you will be able to take up, say, spiritual disciplines like karma yoga, and to that extent you'll be naturally in more control of your mind. Right now your mind is ruling the roost. Right now, I'm not, when I say you, I'm not meaning personally you, I'm talking sort of collectively, right? The reason for all our agitation, the reason for all our emotional fluctuation is because we've placed the mind on a pedestal, and our buddhi, our intellect is not strong enough to control it, to regulate it, to shed knowledge upon it. So we may know a lot of things, or we may have heard a lot of things, but because of the weakness of our buddhi, we haven't fully grasped it, and we lack the capacity to sort of, impress upon our minds the very knowledge which we may have heard, right? So strengthening your buddhi, that's the only and most important practical advice on the spiritual journey. Your buddhi is a gift of nature, a tool that makes you independent, a tool that strengthens your sadhana, strengthens your journey through life, be it a spiritual journey or even your sort of your materialistic journey, whatever you wish. Even if you want materialistic success in the world, even if you want to learn the art of dealing with people, dealing with situations, dealing with circumstances, negotiating different circumstances in life, you need a strong buddhi. So that begs the question, how to develop this buddhi, right? And developing the buddhi is a slow and gradual process. It's like building a muscle. It starts with a simple principle of developing the spirit of questioning everything with the hope to understand, as opposed to simply listening to what someone else has to say and following it blindly, right? When you develop your own understanding of things through your own questioning, through your own analysis, then you're able to brick by brick fortify yourself, right? Yep. Yes, Rashi ji.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
So this is with regards to talking about symbolism and practices. I'm still trying to find a good answer which satisfies me when it comes to this particular concept of nazar utarna. It has been very symbolic, said by many, and it has been a widely practiced widely used practice कि बच्चों की नजर उतारते हैं and all of that. I still need to understand if I don't know what is your view on it, but could you just throw some light on this? That what is this concept of nazar?
See, everything you're asking me will be me matam, will be my opinion,
That's
rather
okay.
than
That's
will
fine.
be rather than shastra, sort of, shastram pramanam asti.
I agree.
We have to understand one thing: shastram pramanam asti, which means that scripture is the authority.
Agreed.
Now, if we consider Bhagavad Gita as the scripture, or perhaps the main scripture which we want to follow in our lives, is there any mention of nazar? No.
Exactly. My point.
Is
Yes.
there any measure? Is there any mention of an auspicious day for an auspicious time? No. Is there any Jyotisha? No. Okay. So, Shastram Pramanam Asti, number one. Then, for whatever reason, because of, your own cultural context, there may be a variety of practices which you may or may not want to. See, there's a beautiful line in the Vedanta treatise which says, and Swamiji used to say this, he used to say that ultimately you are following a combination of paths, right? But for a jnani, one on the path of knowledge, rituals actually become an impediment after a time. Okay. Not to say that the rituals are wrong, but the rituals have a reason, they have a purpose, and some may have outgrown that purpose.
Right.
Okay. So if you don't find the need to do a certain ritual or do a certain, not out of arrogance,
Right. I agree.
not out of feeling that I am greater than the ritual, just that you don't connect with that symbolism.
True.
Because what is a symbolism? Symbolism doesn't mean it's not true. Symbolism means that it's meant to invoke something in you. When I'm using the word symbolism, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying it's meant to inspire you in some way. So you use the symbolism. You do that ritual, right? But if it doesn't sing to you, then you don't need it.
So, sir, sometimes when the inspiration is not to do something good, the inspiration is fear also. You end up doing things out of fear.
Then karo. And up until you can rise above the fear. So if you ask me what
Yeah.
me matam, I personally don't do it, but I don't stop others from doing it.
That's right.
Hmm? Because
I know, to each its own. I mean, whoever.
to each its own, and B, see, it's about, you use the word fear, right? Are you catering to that fear? Because ultimately, jnanam turns you abhayam. That's the purpose of jnanam. Okay. Again, not out of ego that, oh, I am jnani, I don't have bhaya. Very truly, if there's bhaya in you, right, you can follow two paths. You can say, okay, either I'll give into certain ritual, or slowly I will try to fortify myself, or there is a point of intersection of the two, and slowly you'll get over the need to, when there is shraddha and when there is faith, then where is there fear?
Absolutely.
If there is fear, that means faith is lacking. Hmm?
So, sir, that has been
You
my
read,
point.
you read the Hanuman Chalisa. You're a Hanuman Bhakta.
Yes.
So either Hanumanji will protect you, or Nazar will, Jadoo Tona will protect you. You decide.
No, you.
So you can use Jadoo Tona. I'm not saying you don't use it. I'm not saying there's no, but that only reflects that you don't trust that Hanumanji is there, right? Hanumanji is missing. He's too busy somewhere else. So I need something else to protect me.
No, I totally get it, and this is exactly what I had believed all along. I just needed some different perspective, which is why I asked this question. So thank you so much for clarifying it for me. Thank you.
See, suppose you're on a flight.
Right.
Suppose you're on a plane, right? Suppose a person next to you is flying for the first time and they've never seen turbulence. When there is turbulence, you realize, if you've watched enough of, videos of planes flying like me on YouTube, you'll realize that sometimes in turbulence, pilots purposely, sort of change elevation and there's a sudden fall, sudden drop. So you'll be calm. The person next to you will start praying. What I'm saying is that prayer is symbolic, but that doesn't mean it's not true. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose. For a person who's not aware of what's happening in that plane, where there is ignorance, that prayer plays a very important role of keeping them, mentally stable, right? But for a person who perhaps understands what's happening, you don't need to go to that ritual, right? You get it?
I get it. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
That said, there are some rituals which, and wherever you can relate to a ritual, you must do it. Wherever you can relate to a certain practice, you must do it, because it becomes a practice which sort of helps you. It sort of streamlines your dincharya. It gives you a direction for the day. Get it? So find connection and then practice, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, with that thought, thank you so much. We'll see you again.